Hi everyone, I have been asked to do a little video about how to decide which Faber-Castell Polychromos to buy. Now I have the 120 tin, and I've got the little leaflet here with all the colours, but some people I know have a smaller tin and they may be buying all open stock or just trying to add extras to their small tin. And some have said to me the colours weren't quite as they had expected, or they were very similar to other colours. So what would I recommend with regards to what you could buy if you're going to buy some polychromos and you can't afford or don't want to go for the full 120? Well, this is just my opinion according to what I use. Obviously we're all different in what our favourite colours are, but I thought I'd be happy to just share with you my ideas. So I have swatched these out in my swatch book, and that can be quite helpful to see what they actually look like, but also through the tin. We'll go through the tin and I will show you. Now don't use the length of my pencil as a basis of which I use the most. Some of these have been replaced quite recently, some of them haven't. I've had these for a very long time, so it really doesn't help. So that's my first thing to say. But we'll just go through each tray and talk about the colours. Not necessarily each single colour, but what I would say I would use and what I wouldn't use quite so often. So first of all, the white. Now the Polychromos white is not particularly good. When I swatched it in this book on white paper, you can barely see there's anything there. I can just see the shine in the light and that's it. If you use it on top of other colours, it doesn't really do anything. It is a good blocker, so if you want to leave a white area, you don't have a white pen, do a bit of white, press down really hard, burnish it down, and the colour won't sit on top of it. But if you've got a Prismacolor white, a Caran d'Ache Luminance white, a Derwent drawing pencil white, I think it's Chinese white, those are all far, far superior to this white. So if you're buying open stock, and you have none, I wouldn't recommend buying the white or actually the ivory either, unless you're going to be colouring a lot on dark paper. But I colour colouring books and they're usually white paper, and so you can see here how very pale it is, the ivory. It's a lovely colour, but I would rarely use it. I've used it a fair bit, but these two are, I've never changed them. And I've had this set for, probably 7-8 years. So that is not a lot of pencil usage in that time. And even the cream, I've never changed that cream. I don't use that very much. And you can see here, it is a little bit darker, but it doesn't show up very well on white paper. So I don't use it a lot. But moving on to the yellows, this is where I have some sort of strong opinions really. The light yellow glaze I use a fair bit, to be honest. I use it for things like light from windows. I use it if I want a slightly more lemony yellow as well. It's quite good for that. This one is called Cadmium Yellow Lemon, and it's slightly greeny, and I find it really good if you're doing a leaf and you want a combo going from sort of olivey green to a yellow, but finishing it off with this one. I really like that mix, so I use that one a lot. These two I use interchangeably. Okay, that is the light cadmium yellow and the light chrome yellow. If you look carefully, you can see they are slightly differently. This one actually is the slightly warmer, slightly more orangey one, but they are really very, very similar. So with those two, if you're going to buy open stock, I would buy one of them, not both. This one though is quite different. This is the cadmium yellow. It's a lot warmer. It's a really nice colour for if you just want a general mid-yellow colour. So that's rather nice. And then I love this dark cadmium yellow. We're going into an orangey yellow. I really like it. It's lovely and warm. Then we go to the dark chrome yellow. You see I've used mine a fair bit, but it's sort of in between the dark cadmium yellow and cadmium orange, but you could probably combine those two and get that. It might not be a necessary one to purchase. It's fairly close to cadmium orange. You can see the light a light application of that would probably be very similar to that one. Now, orange glaze is a really odd colour. It doesn't look like the other oranges. If you even look at the paintwork on this pencil, it's a slightly different colour. You can see I've used it a fair bit, but actually I would quite happily, when I do a sunset or a sunrise, I often miss it out because it just doesn't quite fit in with the others somehow. So that might be one that maybe you wouldn't want to necessarily get, or you might because it's different. Now, the dark cadmium orange is a really nice step between red and orange, so I use that quite a lot for, as I say, again, sunsets or things like that. So I would probably go for that one. And the light cadmium red, again, it's an orangey red, it's like a really dark orange, so that's quite a handy one. But these reds, when we're getting into these reds, we've got a few that are fairly close. So this one is, let me see, I don't know if they're actually in order. This is the scarlet red and the pale geranium lake. You can see the scarlet red is a more orangey red. The pale geranium lake is a little bit pinker. So I'm not sure if they should really be in this order, but you know, it's always tricky to know. I like this one as a really pale red compared to this one, which is more orangey, but I think it's quite similar to the light cadmium red, the scarlet red. So maybe I wouldn't necessarily get both. Maybe the scarlet red and the dark cadmium orange, and you could mix them together to get that one. Then we go to deep scarlet red. That's a little bit darker again, and it's sort of slightly pinkish. And the deep red, which is again not so pink but quite dark. Those two are reasonably similar, you know, if you're thinking reds. If you like lots of reds, then you might want to get them. Now, the middle cadmium red, you can see it's really different. It's almost purpley-ish in its colour if you compare it to the red violet over here. It's really quite similar to that. I sometimes find it isn't quite the colour that I want or expect, but you know, it's sort of up to you. Let's move across a little bit so we're in shot. The last one here we have here, I don't know if mine are in quite the right order. No, they're not. They're not in the same order as this. We have the permanent carmine. It's a very pinky red. I use it quite a lot with the other carmines. The pink and the rose carmine over here is a darker tone, but to me it's quite similar to the alizarin crimson, really close. So I would probably only go for one of those. Even the madder, although it's a little bit darker, I think if you combine the alizarin crimson and the magenta, you'd probably get a madder shade. Now, the dark red is quite useful. It's similar to the middle cadmium red though, if you look at them. They are very similar. I use them interchangeably, okay? But it's nice to get that actually deep dark red colour. So I would have one of them, but maybe not both, yeah? So I'm new to the madder. I use it quite a lot. It's a rather pretty shade, but it's a bit darker than, say, the carmines. Okay, and I use the rose, the pink, and the alizarin the rose pink carmine and the permanent carmine together. I really like these pinks. They're just favourites of mine. They're down here. You can see they're little because I like those. Now, the next three pinks are these three here. We have the fuchsia, the the fuchsia, the light purple pink, and the pink madder lake I use together as a three. Ignore the middle purple pink at the minute, it's quite a different colour. Those three there I use together because they seem to almost flow from one to the other, but you could probably use the fuchsia and the pink madder lake together to get the light purple pink. You might not need all three. The middle purple pink, you can see, is quite a different colour. It's more like part of the light magenta. Yeah, right. Light red violet. That's quite a different colour to. I think it and the crimson are similar-ish. You know, I'd probably use them interchangeably. The red violet will deepen them all. Yeah, but you might use the magenta instead. They're quite close. Now the crimson, again, I find quite similar to that. I think we spoke about that already. The manganese violet is a really pretty colour, and there aren't any other colours like it in this set. Here's here. I really like it. It's a sort of pinky purple. I just think it's a very pretty colour, and you could probably make it with the light red violet and a violet maybe, but I like it. But the light violet and the purple violet are so close, I use them interchangeably. So I wouldn't necessarily think you would need both. Unless, of course, you're going to use a lot of purple and then you might just run them out, so you might need them. The blue violet and the Delft blue, I think, are really similar as well. So you might just want one of those. I think the Delft blue is probably slightly the winner for me. I really like the Delft colour. Now your mauve is your darkest purple, which is pure purple and not blue. So you probably want that one if you like your purples. Okay. Now I think we're done on this tray. So we're going to move to the next tray. We'll move it back in the shot. Oh, sorry. So you can see. Now we have a dark indigo. Now dark indigo is unlike any other blue. It's a blacky blue. You could probably get that colour if you use the indanthrene blue and a black together, or something very close. But it's quite a nice colour to darken other blues or to use for shadow when you're doing blue colours. Now the indanthrene blue, again, is quite different to any of the others, and it's again quite nice for darkening if you don't want that black tone. The Helia blue reddish and the cobalt green, the cobalt blue greenish, they're quite close in colour, yeah? So I would think carefully about whether you want both, and even that phthalo blue. They're all really similar-ish. They're not identical, and maybe not the cobalt blue, but they're, so these two, so close, yeah. The cobalt blue isn't that far away. It's probably a bit more like the middle phthalo blue. It is a bit different. But if you've got a limited budget, I probably wouldn't buy all of those together. The ultramarine, though, as you can see, is different. It's a more purpley blue. It's a very pretty colour, I think. So that one is slightly different. And we've got the light ultramarine and the sky blue. Now these three I always feel pair together nicely, but these two, the light ultramarine and the sky blue, are quite similar. A very light application of light ultramarine could look like a dark sky blue, so you might not need those two together. Okay. The cobalt blue greenish, I think we spoke about that already, being fair. These two and these two reasonably similar, either than that one. But the light phthalo blue is a much lighter, it's this one, a much lighter blue. So if you want something paler, then that maybe is one that you would choose. The bluish turquoise, again, it's quite different. Or, if you look at it in the cobalt turquoise, they're not massively different to each other. I have to say I prefer the cobalt turquoise somehow. It's a little more greeny. That's still quite blue. The Prussian blue, again, is quite similar to some of these. It is its own colour, obviously, but it isn't massively different. Whereas the Helio turquoise, you can see, it's got a fair bit of green in, and it's just a sort of darker version of this, which I quite like. It's quite nice if you're using your cobalt turquoises. It's quite a nice one for making a little darker area. And these two are some of my favourite colours, so I would certainly say have those. They're these two here. No, these two here, sorry. Now we go, oh yes, the cobalt green, sorry, is that one. It's called green, but it's very much a blue in my brain, but I know we don't all think of colours in the same way. So that's our blues. You can see there's quite a lot of similar blues in there. Now the greens, I like greens. I like having lots of greens. I use greens loads, so even when they're similar, I always get them. But that doesn't mean that's the case for you. The deep cobalt green, is a really dark bluey green. There aren't any others that are similar to that. So that's, I would say that's a good one to get if you want to do, if you're using your bluey greens, your phthalo greens, your emerald greens, and you want some dark shading, that's the one I would use. The hooker's green is fairly bluey green, but not quite, it's sort of in between really. I do like that colour. And it is, you could say it was a bit similar to the ones, some of the ones down here, hang on. Down here, maybe. And we have the dark phthalo green, we have a phthalo green and a light phthalo green, but they're all quite different. The dark phthalo green and the light phthalo green aren't so hugely different. It's quite hard for you to see that swatch there and there, but the light phthalo green is much lighter, and it's a really nice colour for mixing with, say, the turquoise blue to make a really lovely combo. So I would definitely go for the light phthalo green if you like those sort of bluey greeny combos. The chrome oxide green fiery I tend to use interchangeably with the phthalo green or the dark phthalo green. It's quite close, so might not be one that you necessarily need as an add-on. The emerald green is quite different. You can see it, although it sits in between here in its intensity, it isn't quite the same as those. So I rather like that one. Now let's push up a little bit. Oops. So we have our light green and our grass green and our leaf green. And these three are fairly similar tone of green, but obviously going lighter and darker. Now I would not necessarily worry about getting the grass green. I think the leaf green and the light green together would give you that grass green, so I don't think you would necessarily need it. The permanent green though is a little bit more brownish, not as much as the permanent green olive, but a little bit more, so it's a different shade to that one. And it's one of my favourite greens, so I would say get it, but obviously it's all very personal. Now you can see that the pine green and the chrome oxide green are fairly similar, and the juniper green, they're not the same greens. The juniper green is a much more grey green, and I use it together with the earth green a lot. They pair up nicely. The pine green I don't tend to mix up with anything else. I tend to use it on its own, so maybe it's not quite such a versatile colour, whereas the chrome oxide green I use together with the earth green sometimes. But moving on down here, this olive green yellowish is quite brown. It's a browny green. It's more maybe like the oh, there's one in the Prismas. Is it artichoke? Something like that. But it pairs quite nicely with these, but you could potentially use one of the browns instead of it to get with one of these two. Now these two are really similar. Again, they're some of my favourite greens, so I use them a lot. Oops. My May green is, this is my second or third May green. So, and this one, sometimes I do use them interchangeably though. You can see how very similar they are. So you might not want both, but if it's a favourite colour of yours, then you might. The chromium green opaque works really well with them. You can see it's a similar olivey colour, and I use it to darken them. As I say, the earth green is a grey green, and I use it together with the juniper green a lot, and with a pinky colour like these, to make a nice leaf combo. And it's quite different to all the rest, so it might be one that might be worth picking up if you like that sort of sage green, sap green sort of colour. Is this one here. Now we have these colours here, which always confuse me a little bit. This is the Indian red. That's a sort of browny red. Now it's almost a dark brick red with this bit of purple in. I'm never quite sure where or how to use it. I don't use it a lot, but it is a colour that isn't anywhere else, so it's just one worth thinking about. Now Caput Mortem and Caput Mortem Violet, there are these two. When I first bought them I thought they were brown. They are quite brown, but they're actually reddy purples, or sort of maroon type colours. Again, I don't use them a lot. I don't really know what to use them for, but they are quite different to each other. But I think this Caput Mortuum Violet is quite similar to the red violet up there. You may not agree, but I think they're quite close because I don't really use them a lot. I don't really see the difference, if that makes any sense. Now going on to the bottom tray. Oops, let's just over. Oh, I'm so sorry. We have the burnt carmine here. Now I use this in combination with the rose carmine and the pink carmine and the other carmine, I can't remember, the permanent carmine, together to darken. But I think you could use any of these interchangeably to just darken something. I don't tend to use it on its own. Now we have our 3 flesh tones. They don't have these names anymore. Coral, and just look at the numbers is the best way to go. Now this colour, which is the 130, is a really pretty pink. I use it for flowers quite a lot. I love it. I think it's really pretty. So I like that colour. This pink I'm not so keen on. I don't use it as much. Okay, and this one I don't use very much at all. However, I don't do a lot of skin tone because I'm not confident in doing skin tones, and it's something that I need to learn, so I may find I'll be using those a lot more. Plus the cinnamon, which I do use more. I use it for bricks. So, but it could be used for a pale skin tone. If you're going to do a tone like my skin, those would be the ones that you might want to use. Obviously it depends on what skin tone you're colouring or tend to colour, whether these are going to be much use to you. And this is very pale. Okay, this Pompeian red, I really like this red. It's very different to the other reds that we have. It's a slightly pinky red, but not as pink as like Madder or something like that. And I rather like it. And we have the Venetian red, which is a more brick-like rusty toned red. I wouldn't necessarily get both of them, although they're not the same colour. They're quite different. I tend to use them interchangeably, and I tend to use the Pompeian red more just because it's a bit prettier, in my opinion. Yeah. Then we've come on to our sanguine and terracotta. They're not together here, these two. They aren't identical. The sanguine is definitely more orangey. I prefer the terracotta colour personally, but I think that looks more like the sanguine looks more like a terracotta pot though, oddly. I use them interchangeably, even though they're not really the same. I don't use them a lot, so you know that might be one way you might just get one of them. The burnt ochre though is here. I use it a fair bit. It really, I think, should be mixed in with the browns, because it should probably be down here in with the umbers or brown ochre, but it's a more orangey brown. Now polys don't have a lot of orangey browns. I don't really like them. I don't use them a lot unless I've got a set with lots in and I just sort of use them. So for me they're not a must, but if you like your orangey browns, then you know you're going to want to have those in your set. And now we have 3 yellows. We have a light yellow ochre, a Naples yellow, and a dark Naples ochre. Now I like these yellow tones, these browny yellows. They're really nice. They're good for, I use them for gold, but only one of the 3 when I'm making gold. I think the Naples yellow and the dark Naples ochre are very, very close, and I wouldn't necessarily think it was necessary to have both. Okay, but this one is different. So, you know, it's up to you. You might only want to get one of those 3. The green gold, however, is a must. It's my favourite pencil. You can use it to just make gold, to make things look gold without any other colours. I always use it when I make gold. So if I make gold using dark brown, mid brown, I then use green gold, a Naples yellow and a bright yellow. But if you want to cheat and just make gold, this is your friend. You can just make it look gold. You can do it like if you've got a really tiny key or something, you can just colour it in this and it looks gold. Or you can, as I say, use it as a mix. It's great with greens as well to make leaf colour. So that one I think is a lovely colour, and as I say, I would say a must because it isn't one that comes in many other sets. Sorry, I'm struggling to get everything in shot. Now we have our light browns, the brown ochre and the raw umber. This is the brown ochre and this is the raw umber. They aren't identical, but they are very similar colours. Although the barrels don't look that similar, when they're down on the paper you can see they're quite close. So I would probably use those interchangeably. Okay. Now we have a Bistre and a Nougat. We'll miss out the Van Dyke Brown. I use these two interchangeably as well. Again, they're not identical, but they're very, very close. So I use them together. I'm just going to reposition. Hang on. Let's move that way. There we go. So the Van Dyke Brown and the Burnt Umber, for me, I hope it's not too shadowy, are fairly close, and maybe the Walnut Brown as well. So I don't know if you would need all three. I probably just use all three interchangeably. I really do. Whereas the Burnt Sienna is a lot more orangey than any of the others. So it's definitely a colour of its own. It's not something you could replace, if you know what I mean. You might be able to make it from adding your sanguine to a dark brown or something like that, but I think it's quite a different colour. Now dark sepia is a colour that I use a lot. Here he is. This is my second or third. I use it for shadows because it's a browny black. I think it's better for shadows than just a simple black. It's not as dirty looking as black, so I use it for that all the time. Now we have all our warm greys. Now I wouldn't necessarily bother with one or maybe even two. They're very pale. I would probably start with 3 and then maybe just get 3 and 5, because if you use 5 quite hard or mix it with the sepia you would get a 6. If you mix 5 and 3 you would get a 4, and if you use 3 lightly you could probably get a 2 or a 1 equivalent. There's a lot there. I do use them all just because I've got them all. You can see that warm, look at my these are my first ones of these. Remember how long I've had these for. I really don't use the ones, they're so pale. I rarely use them. I'm trying to use them more because it's obviously wasteful not using them, but you can see that I don't. And the similar thing with the cold greys. So you've got your dark, I'd probably pick the darkest. Yeah, I'd probably pick the darkest. I'd probably go 6, 4, 3. That's probably what I would choose. These are probably too pale. This one I use loads. It's really good for silver. And you can darken it a bit with 4 and 6. You know, I don't think you really need the 5. Yeah. Now Payne's grey is a different shade of grey. It's a more purpley grey. So it works, I use it for different things than the other 2 sets of greys. It is quite similar to the cold grey and the black though. You could probably make it, although as I say it's slightly purpley. It doesn't show up too well here. So that's one for you to think about really. Silver, gold and copper. Now if you like metallic pencils then these are for you. They don't shine very much. You can see the shine there. It's not very bright. The silver is most impressive. It does shine more. The gold is very dull. And the copper, I rarely use them. I used the copper for a background once, which is why it's got so sharpened. You can see I rarely use them. I bought them open stock and I was really disappointed. If you like metallic pencils, I think the Castle Art metallic pencils are better than these, to be honest, in my opinion. So that is really polys. Other things about polychromos that I need to add in really is they need layering up. They're not instantly really vibrant, so you have to either press really hard, which isn't recommended because you can dent the paper or spoil the page on the back, or layer them a lot to get a bright colour. But because they're not so vibrant, they erase more easily. not completely. And you can mix, you can layer up lots of colours. So if you haven't got the colour here that you want, you can keep layering and mixing and layering and mixing. And because they're a very light layer, you can keep going and going and going. So if you don't get the colour you want the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, you can keep going, which is nice. They work with blenders and blending solution. Although Faber-Castell don't make, they don't. Sorry, my memory card just ran out, so I had to delete a few things. But just to say, although they don't make their own blending solutions and blending pencils, Prisma and Derwent and Caran d'Ache all work quite well with them, so you can use them. What else is there to say? You can buy them open stock, so if you need to replace them, you always can, which is really good. And they're quite easy. In the UK you can buy them in quite a lot of places, even in shops, which is nice. And you can buy the tins in sort of 12, 24, 36, 72 and 120, I think. That's the wrong booklet, it's not going to tell me in there. I can't remember, here it is. Oh no, it's not going to tell me. Some of them are light fast and some of them aren't so light fast. There's a star system. 1 star is reasonable light fastness, 2 for high and 3 for maximum. If that's something that is of concern to you, go to the website and check. Most of them are quite good, but a few of them aren't. So if you're going to be doing a picture that you're going to be hanging on a wall and it might be exposed to sun, then you want to check your light fastness. But if you're going to be colouring something that's going to be kept in a book, then you probably don't really need to worry too much. So it depends if it's an issue for you. So I think that's probably all. I like the tin, the cases are nice and sturdy. They go in and fit really nicely, which for some budget brands I find I struggle to get them in, and it just closes nicely. The lid fits nice and securely. You can carry it about, I mean, it's obviously big, without worry that the lid's going to pop up and they're going to spill out. So I like that as well. I know not everyone keeps them in the tin. I think that's everything. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I will try to answer. See, if I can. So that's that. But I hope that's given you some information and is useful. So thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your day and happy colouring.